Oh, look, guys, I mean, unless you've been hidden under a rock for the last couple of years, there's been this glorious boom of a technology called AI. If there was a cheaper, faster, higher quality way to execute your goals, is it not irresponsible not to investigate that? We weren't designed to sit behind a laptop or a screen for 12 hours a day writing reports. It doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means we weren't designed to do that. I mean, turning the question to you, I mean, what does the future of podcasting look like when you could create these things on the fly?
In my view, it's the human-to-human connection and interaction that an AI bot can't replicate.
Are you asking for a hug? Is that what you want? Do you want a hug?
Welcome to The Business Game.
A podcast that moves the needle.
Kalina, traffic control scheduling. Simple in theory, absolute chaos in reality.
One small change and suddenly everyone's confused.
That's why TraffTrack exists. They specialise in real-time traffic control scheduling that actually keeps things moving.
Desktop, app, remote, no more. Who's on what job?
And they're even taking that into construction next.
Love that. Check them out at trafftrack.com.
Thanks to TraffTrack for supporting The Business Game. Hello and welcome to The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle. I'm Steve Plummer. Before we get started today, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Today we're joined by Dave Howden, CEO of SupaHuman AI. Hi Dave, welcome.
Hello, kia ora, everyone. I can't believe you invited me back.
Well, you're a friend of the show, Dave.
So punishment.
You're a friend of the show. How can we not have you back on? All right, Dave, to kick us off, tell us a bit about yourself and about what SupaHuman does.
Oh, look, guys, I mean, unless you've been hidden under a rock for the last couple of years, there's been this glorious boom of a technology called AI. And regardless of all the noise and, another AI company popping up, I think the reality is that every business has always needed an organization to help shepherd them through into a new era of technology adoption. So that's what SupaHuman is. It's the shepherd for organizations that leads and takes organizations into how to best apply that in an industrial setting, and to make sure that we're leveraging these technologies for businesses to create unfair competitive advantage with their intellectual property, their methodologies, and to move from what is commercial grade intelligence such as Copilot and ChatGPT into proper industrial applications of this tech to help grow GDP, make people's lives better, and most importantly, remove the tedious work from people's lives so they can get back to being a bit more human again.
Mm-hmm. All right, nice. Interesting. You mentioned the explosion of AI companies. You're right. It's the last 18 months, 2 years, 18 months in particular, just so many companies are AI this, AI that. Is that a good thing, or is that a clouding of the waters, if I may put it that way?
So if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of try and go quite narrow and deep on some of these these topics, because I think, unfortunately for your audience and pretty much every audience out there, there's a lot of AI washing that goes on where it's just surface level.
Yes.
Not garbage, but it's just surface level content, which doesn't really help. I think.
Yep.
But I think the reality is, as I see it, is when technology comes along that has quite significant promise to help change people's lives, change industries, help relieve the pressures of running a business in terms of growth, opportunity, managing risk, managing efficiency. People catch on to that and they want to, build wealth around it, which is why these businesses pop up. I think the key thing really is consistency and making sure that it's less about the tech, more about the application of the power of these technologies, and making sure that there's consideration for, well, why are we doing this in the first place? What problem are we trying to solve? And then, realizing that that chaos and the noise can paralyze a lot of businesses, and actually just finding someone that you can trust to get started, who's got experience, is actually the most important thing to deciphering whether you should be spending your hard-earned gross profit on some of this stuff. So I guess there's a bit of buyer beware. There's not really any experts in this field. And I say that with a pinch of salt. Of course, there's some amazing expertise in this technology, but a lot of it is at the infrastructure layer over in the US and China, where it's the core intelligence is being developed. The application of it with industry is still very, very much not expert yet. So therefore, let's go and find the path together. And as history has told us, if not all first movers take all the advantage, but those that don't move at all tend to get left behind forever. And that's kind of the opportunity that we see in front of us right now.
Yeah. Just to touch on something about going deep, we use chat for our, or Grok or whatever for our messaging. We're using AI in our business. Well, I get a sense that you're going, well, that's a surface level application. It might be good to a point, but there's a lot more, I guess, power you can get out of AI than just that kind of thing. Is that a fair comment?
I am an analogies guy, and to my fault probably, and I kind of try to find a story in how do we describe some of these things. And I was speaking at a panel yesterday, and I was describing that we've been consuming intelligence since the dawn of time, right? You will have producers that work for you in the show where you bring in their intelligence and skills and you put them to work. And you put them to work by bringing the IP of the business into that human, and then that human becomes more productive and effective. Artificial versions of that, AI is no different. It's intelligence that only really becomes mightily powerful when you apply IP to it. And that for us is the industrial strength. Any human can come off the street and do lightweight tasks. They can probably all make a cup of tea. They can all clean the floor. They could all say hello and work at reception. Like, they can do that. And that's what consumer grade intelligence is. It's good for everyone, but not deep at anything. But when you take an institution, IP, methodologies, wall garden data that's, sacred to your organization, and you bind those two things together, then you get the perfect, storm, something that can scale infinitely and give you a competitive advantage. So why is this important? It's important because intelligence itself isn't the unlock. It's that plus you as the human and the IP that you have does create that outsized advantage. So that's what we refer to as industrial strength AI.
All right, going back a couple of years, what was the moment where you went, actually, this is really important. This is where things are going, and I'm on board. Was there ever a moment like that with AI for you?
I just think there's been moments like that in every technology adoption. If you go back to, before we had electricity or hydraulics or anything like that, there would have been people that sat around and go, holy hell, what have I just seen? I've just seen a machine dig a hole in a second quicker than it would take 20 men to dig it in a week. And that was that moment for, physical mechanical engineering. And I had very similar scenarios where I just knew what it meant to operate in a corporate environment. I knew what I'd worked in corporates long enough to know how much administration goes on. And the amount of human capital is put to work for work that is not human. And what I mean by that is we weren't designed to sit behind a laptop or a screen for 12 hours a day writing reports. That's not us. That's not what it doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means we weren't designed to do that. And the light bulb moment for me was very early on when I could just see that the speed and accuracy at which language models could replicate human behavior, or even mimic it with just a partial degree of accuracy, was only going to get better from that point. And for a lot of organizations, a very, very high percentage of their cost is that human-led labor. And therefore, regardless of the positive or negative impacts of that, there was a huge opportunity there to be in that space. So that for me would have been around probably December 2022. In reality, for my light bulb moment, but pre that, I was on the board of a couple of businesses that were in the early chat space. And we were already talking about, every company's going to have a digital human, and it was very more like conversational design as opposed to built on GPT technologies. So yeah, that's probably a long answer to a short answer, which is, yeah, there was 100% a light bulb moment, which I think has been the same light bulb moment for probably most of the Western world.
Yeah. All right. What do you think is the real hidden cost that businesses pay, either financially or culturally, if they don't get on board with AI?
There's probably a little bit of a different vector on that one, is that we've been here before where there has been different ways of working or different ways to deliver a value proposition, and businesses have either decided to or not decided to jump on that. And there's been failures, been successes, but we've seen this play out. Organizations that jumped into e-commerce first kind of won the race. Organizations that jumped into telecommunications early kind of won the race. And there's been these big technology jumps over the past 50 or so years when you could say there's a make or break moment for a traditional business to go, right, well, how we fundamentally designed our business when we founded it versus how we need to take it to the future is different. And that does come down to a leadership moment. And for me, that leadership moment is really getting comfortable with the sunk cost fallacy, which is just because you've done something, you've always done it and spent money doing that way, doesn't mean that's actually valuable anymore. And that's quite hard for founders and directors to swallow because they've been part of that growth journey. But when we see executive teams and board members understand that no longer do they need to run their business with human capital, and then they are the first ones to kind of find the unlock, and that's the wealth creation moment for most shareholders in that, in that position.
Different levels of business, and by that I mean different sizes. 500 to $1 million, 10 million plus, whatever. Different applications of AI. How broad is that spectrum? For example, if you're running this, and I know it's a bit of a how long's a piece of string type question because it might be, sector dependent and all those sorts of things. But are there certain things that smaller businesses should be doing versus what bigger businesses should be doing in terms of AI adoption and use of AI?
That's a very good question. So, this is my view only, and it will be totally inaccurate. So if you carry on listening, I'll kind of share my view. And there is no right answer to this one.
Mm-hmm.
What we see as a business that supports organizations of building unfair advantage with these kind of technologies is that the bigger you are, the harder it is.
Uh-huh.
And the smaller you are, the harder it is. Okay?
Yeah.
So
hang on. Did I hear that right?
Exactly. So I'll explain what that means. There's a window, there's a sweet spot in the middle between large enterprise and really, really small business, which you've got a massive opportunity. Very, very small, 5, 10, 20, 30 person organizations, they just haven't got $500,000 on the balance sheet to be able to invest in building something that fundamentally moves the needle for them, right? So that market is likely to hold on and then wait for someone else that's bigger to create some IP that they can leverage, and they will buy software that allows their industry to continue to reduce cost over time, but they will be recipients of that intelligence. Similar to what happened with e-commerce, right? The big department stores went and built their own e-commerce platforms, and then all the small guys just carried on as they were doing until Shopify came along and democratized it for everyone. That was that moment. That's going to happen in most industries with AI. And then so that's why it's hard for small. Why is it hard for big? Well, it's hard for big because the larger you are, the less beneficiaries of the upside exist, as in the material upside in terms of shareholder return. That is not inside the business when you're so big. It's normally on the stock market or it's with investors. So if you can go and create an extra $20 million of gross profit, you might get a $10,000 pay rise, whereas your investors get a big payday. So there's less impetus to actually stimulate change at large enterprise because the needs payoff is not there within the exec or not there within the management. So what we see with large enterprises, whilst there's big initiatives to do AI, culturally it's very challenging for them to do because there's not that many beneficiaries. There's too much risk for people losing their jobs, and everyone wants to kind of be the chief AI officer. So you end up with a political paralysis happening at large scale and no capital at small scale. So now where's the opportunity? In the mid-market, where you've got a balance sheet that can invest a reasonable amount, but not a massive amount of capital, and you've got an exec and a board, which are the beneficiaries of the upside, that's where there's huge amounts of opportunity. The opportunity looks twofold. One, you get to move quicker than everybody else because you've got the ability to act quickly whilst everyone else is messing around.
Yes.
But also, you end up being highly acquirable to the big guys because you've moved and you've built IP, and then the enterprise realize it's too difficult and they come and acquire you. So there is quite significant opportunities in the mid-market to say, look, I am a consulting company that do geotechnical engineering. The massive engineering firms are going to take too long, but we can go and build some of this stuff for ourselves. And then we become acquirable by a bigger firm for our technology and how we get stuff done. And those pockets of IP exist in every industry, in every space. So that's what we're seeing pop up quite a lot for those CEOs and directors that are prepared to do a bit of investing.
Mm. On your website, you've got some really spectacular results. 6 weeks to 6 minutes, 10 hours to 20 minutes, 20 minutes to 90 seconds. Really, really cool stuff. You mentioned it just then as well. This notion or this idea that AI is going to take all the jobs. How do you respond to that? With it's a fear-based thing, obviously, but there's plenty of people out there that goes, gosh, it's happening in law, it's happening in accounting. AI is going to take all the jobs.
So I had a session with a wealth management firm earlier on this week, and the reason I'm telling this story is that there is two narratives, and generally the headline goes to the doomsday scenario of everyone's going to lose their jobs. Balancing the story is really important because there is as much opportunity as there is risk. If you look at what a wealth management firm does, they administer people's money to place money in the investment markets to help clients get return, right? Now, they can only manage so much money. They can only manage so many clients because each client comes with an element of administration. They have to do monthly reports or annual reports. That all takes time. So each advisor can only manage so many customers. Well, if I can go and remove that admin and take it from 40% of their day down to 10% of their day, they can now manage an extra, $100 million worth of revenue, right? More, which is money in their back pocket, which is money in the firm's pocket. So how, in that scenario, is AI a threat or is it a wealth creation opportunity for that sector? Flip side is there is work which humans weren't designed to do that people get paid a salary to do that is going to drastically change. And that is real. There's no easy answer to that. And you will have heard this time and time again, and none of it sounds great. Industries that I think are probably safer than others are, things like diesel mechanics, roofers, scaffolders, things like not just construction trades, but anywhere where you're physically, mechanically need to get your hands in and move material. Robotics aren't going to get to that point, anytime that soon. But knowledge workers, consultants, writing reports, tax advisors, all those kind of industries are going to see a massive shift in how those value propositions get pushed into the market. I don't think it's the end of lawyers. I don't think it's the end of consulting. I mean, I think that's a bit ridiculous. There's always going to be a place for people to get paid for their skill. I believe how that work is computationalized, though, is going to move from a human to tech pretty quickly. The scary thing for most people is the speed at which these things can happen now. We have seen these things happen before with, there's no more typists anymore, right? There's no more, not everyone's driving around a horse anymore. And all those industries which kind of service those things have moved on, but they tend to erode over time. But even things such as whaling, right? I mean, whaling at one point, whale blubber and whale oil was the biggest industry in the world at one point until we discovered petrochemicals. And then literally within a year, that whole industry had gone. So that shouldn't give anybody any comfort. We have, however, been here before and will likely be here again. And I think it's important to realize what we're focusing on at SupaHuman is if it's hard to define what the future workforce looks like, how do you educate that future workforce? And we're trying to figure that scenario out, is that how do you actually get skills into people for a workforce that is yet to be defined because we don't know what skills we're going to need. And that's kind of a nice paradigm to be thinking about.
Yeah, and like you said, it's the speed of the iteration and the change, and you might be working it out for that, but it moves so fast. Is that one of the challenges that you're finding businesses face? Is that speed of iteration? Once you've mastered something, it's already 3 steps ahead of where you were.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, if you went and bought a car tomorrow, you wouldn't replace it next week just because a new model comes out. And I think there's a reality of that is that you could engineer some amazing things that do stand some time. And then at some point you want to revisit that and go, has the technology moved on to a point where it's worth investing and kind of recycling that again? So if we treat a lot of the projects that we do with customers as a capital asset where you're like, look, what you build now needs to have some shelf life. And how do we engineer in the ability for things to continually get better over time? But ultimately, we can't tell you what tech's going to look like in 3 years. So it's likely that you're going to go and need to do a refresh cycle on that digital asset because the tech will have got better by then. Things happen quicker than you think, and then they happen slower than you think at the same time. It's a weird paradigm. But returning the question to you, I mean, it's very easy to kind of throw away and say, well, what does the future of podcasting look like when you could create these things on the fly? I imagine that you've got an opinion about, well, what value a human brings to the table, what value AI created content brings. Like, what's your thought?
Well, it's interesting. I was going to ask you, so do you see this in future? I'll be replaced by a bot that will ask you AI type questions. But in my view, it's the human to human connection and interaction that, in the current context, that an AI bot can't replicate. Now, whether that's the same thing in 5 years, but because there might be just one thing you say that we just pull on a thread and it goes into a whole new direction. The interview and the narrative of the podcast. Now, I just wonder if AI would be able to do that. I don't know the answer. It's a really interesting question, right? And do I become a robot in future? Where, all right, so we have Dave Howden here today, and it's a robotic thing versus a human thing. It's a really interesting question. What are your thoughts?
I think there's going to become a craft industry for human connection, where there's going to be a very, very high percentage of things that are done by agentic services, robots, physical machines, and we're going to get very used to that. And then I think we're going to crave the connection, and we're not going to care about the quality of the connection. If that makes sense, I think we're going to seek it out for its imperfection. You could arguably say, if I was to do an interview with an AI that was master of psychology, could read my face, knew how to negotiate like a master negotiator, could do research on me on the fly, could fact check me on the fly, it would be an horrific interview, right?
Yes.
Because it's essentially gamifying.
Yeah.
It's gamifying it, whereas actually there's beauty in the imperfection. You don't really know how I'm going to react. I don't kind of know you. You're feeling me out. I'm feeling you out.
Yeah.
It's like playing chess against a computer. If it's the perfect game, why play it? Because you don't want to play the perfect game. You want to kind of defeat through the weakness. And I think we're going to seek that out a little bit. I was watching the highlights of the in Abu Dhabi. I don't think it's Formula One, but it was like a AI racing series that was on in Abu Dhabi last night. And a year ago, it was around 3 minutes a lap off the pace of a Formula One driver. Then when they started the session yesterday, it was 10 seconds off the pace. And then by the end of the session, about 2 days, it was about half a second off the pace of a Formula One driver as an AI Formula One car going around the Abu Dhabi circuit. Now, if that can do the perfect lap, and every car can do the perfect lap, and everything is done to perfection, well, where's the jeopardy? I mean, if we watch sport for the jeopardy,
yeah. What's the point?
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
And I do think we can get to that with things like AI podcasting and stuff. I want the ums, the ahs, the awkward silences, maybe I do, maybe I don't know. But I do feel there's going to be a craft in that space. And people will pay a premium for it.
Yeah. The thing you talk about there is the unknown outcome almost. You don't know what questions necessarily I'm going to ask you, and I don't necessarily know what answers you're going to give. And do we get down to a dead end where it's just this dead air and we're going, right, we don't know the outcome. And so I think you're I think you're right. And I did see some stuff the other day too that a growth industry is going to be professional walkers. Because we're
Yeah,
so disconnected, we crave that human connection. People who don't get it will pay people to come and walk with them
yeah,
and talk
yeah,
and
yeah,
professional huggers and so forth. So we
yeah. Are you asking for a hug? Is that what you want? Do you want a hug?
yeah, just lean in a bit, will you? Even if it's virtual, come on,
Yeah.
Dave, lean in a bit.
No, I'm probably not as. There's going to be a dark, there's going to be a black industry on some of this stuff as well. I mean, when you've got technology that can master manipulate you, read your psychology, give you everything you ever hoped and wanted. Like there is going to be some odd digital relationships that I think appear over time, and we saw this with the boom of social media when Facebook and Instagram and all the social media platforms came out, 2014 through to about 2020s. Like, there was a digital disconnect for the youth at that point where they dropped a human connection to have more of a digital connection, and that didn't lead to great mental health outcomes. And I don't think the rule book or the guidebook or the blueprint is written yet for what it means when you have a relationship with this technology, where it can, I won't say the word manipulate, but it will be able to give you what it thinks you want. And humans don't operate that way. They give you what they want, because we're selfish as humans ultimately. So,
Yeah, like a poorly prompted chat, right? That will give you nice things because it wants to please you, kind of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, that's right. And depending on who these systems are built by, it will get pretty dark. But what technology hasn't? Every technology has got dark in some sense. But I'm sure we'll figure that out as we go.
Testing, 1, 2, hello?
Are we on?
Are we on? Hello?
Hey folks, let's take a quick pause to talk about our friends at HubSpot. If you've ever felt like running marketing, sales and customer service all at once is, a little chaotic, HubSpot is here to change that.
It's an all-in-one CRM platform that actually works the way you think. From generating leads to automating follow-ups to helping your team stay aligned. Personally, I love how the automation tools handle the busy work so you can focus on the bigger strategy.
And here's the best part. You can start your HubSpot journey for free using the link in the description. And while you're at it, you're helping to support this podcast.
HubSpot isn't just a tool. It's like having a full team in one platform, helping you grow your business faster and smarter.
Alrighty, it's back to today's episode. All right, tell us about some of the wins you've had with SupaHuman and the businesses you've worked with.
I think wins, it's an interesting one to classify a win. Companies engage our services because they believe that there's a better way to deliver their value proposition. And when we can help a company unlock its growth potential or increase its productivity or manage its risk profile, like that is our metric of success for us. Some of the big ones are mainly around time reduction. And in terms of business, I think a lot of times we've always measured business on like the classic triangle of time, quality, and cost. If you're going to spend some money or do any piece of work, do you want it fast with low quality, or do you want it slow with good quality? Or if you want it fast with good quality, you need to spend a lot of money. Like there's that three-way paradigm. And what we see as the biggest wins is where we can take that paradigm and throw it in the bin, and we can essentially drive quality super accurately high, better than the human benchmark, reduces time to delivery by factors of weeks to minutes, which you've talked about some examples of those, and do it for a fraction of the cost of how it was previously delivered. And when we do that vector, that's what we love to, for our clients to win through. Some examples of that, a geotechnical engineering company we work with, that's 10 hours worth of administration to write those reports down to about 20 minutes for a compliant report to go into council, which they do 3,000 of those a year. So 3,000 times 10 hour saving is a lot.
That's a lot of hours.
That's a lot of hours.
Don't ask me for that figure, but it's a lot of hours, right? That's what I'll say.
It's a lot of, well, bearing in mind those 10 hours are billable, and they're billable back out to do all the work. So that's that piece. In our education product line, we do ASQA and NZQA assessment generation and course material creation for the tertiary and vocational education sector. Those courses normally take 6 weeks to produce. We do them in about 6 to 7 minutes now. And that's just learning design. Like, people sat behind a computer designing learning materials, and that is perfect for what industrial strength AI is good at. And that is a destruction of that time, quality, cost triangle. Without hyperbole, it's not only faster, it's significantly cheaper because it's faster, and the quality is significantly better than a human.
I was going to ask that, is the quality the key thing as well, that compared to humans doing it? Yeah.
It's a hard one for the customers sometimes to swallow, is the quality benchmark, because
that hurts, right? That hurts.
It does hurt. But how do we expect a human being to be able to research at light speed all the intricacies of an industry and then pull together the appropriate legislation and training and methodologies and be an expert at writing training whilst being a subject matter expert in a discipline and produce wonderful training material? You kind of need 4 or 5 different specialisms to do that. Just so happens you can package those in an AI system and have that done in a matter of no time. And that is difficult for those roles who previously performed that to get their head around. The reason that I'm quite comfortable talking that way is that the reason that we're engaged is to help learners learn and deliver the workforce of the future. So yes, it impacts learning designers, but ultimately we're here for a greater thing than that, which is, workforce development. And that's what drives GDP and economic impact for everybody. So there has to be a greater kind of output somewhere that these things are designed to do. But they're the kind of things we chew on and we work on here day in, day out. Where have you got smart people doing tedious work, which is low value to the business, but high value to a customer. And that's where we thrive.
From your position outside looking in to those businesses, and you mentioned leaders there and the important role they play. How should leaders overcome resistance or even even bringing AI in to bring about those efficiencies? Are there some things that leaders can do to make it smoother, faster, easier for AI adoption?
So this is bias, but I think it's important. So I'll kind of explain why it's biased. I do find facilitated sessions and conversation are far easier because you can enter into a vacuum quite quickly with internal dialogue and internal narrative. Actually having someone come in and help you structure a conversation about, well, what is our strategy for growth? What is our strategy for managing our risk? And what is our strategy for being more efficient with our capital, aligned to what our business goals are? They don't need to be a tech expert, or they don't need to, but someone to facilitate, well, how are you thinking about the future of your organization? And technology will be a pillar of that. That is actually quite rare for businesses to do that. They kind of think that the exec have got all the answers, and actually that's rarely true. Those facilitated sessions really, really help stimulate the thinking. What we then love to see is when that leads to, well, if we were to design our competition, what would we look like? How would we totally disrupt ourselves? If we were to do a startup tomorrow that was going to try and eat our lunch, what would that look like? And that leads you to this moment of going, well, actually, we'd do things very, very differently. And then you look at the mirror and say, well, why aren't we then? And again, it lands in a leadership moment of, are these teams comfortable at having those conversations? So good leadership that allows that with facilitated sessions, I think allows for a business to have a bit of a strategy about where you go in the future. Failing that, there just becomes a lot of risk conversation because you're essentially, there is no answer from the strategy deck, and therefore everyone does think they are going to lose their jobs. So what I really enjoy seeing is when a leader will say, look, we're purposefully designing ourselves for a future that is, powered by different market forces. We're going to go on this journey together, and we're all going to figure it out. And we want everyone's opinion. And unfortunately, there will be some people that, won't want to exist in that new future, and they can make a decision about whether they go down that road or not. But that's. I'm trying to think of an example, but sometimes you need the tools of your trade to do your job. And if you're paid to do your job and you don't want to embrace the tools of your trade, and one of those tools is emerging to be, artificial intelligence, you're actually not doing your job. And it becomes this cycle. And I think there's no real answer, to be honest. I'm probably fluffing around the edges, but the key ingredient and why people, I think, can move to the adoption in a far more eloquent way is start with thinking about strategy. Don't worry about the technology so much, and then see what you've got in your arsenal that can help you accelerate. There's so many examples of this, right? Well, we want to do overseas expansion. Well, cool. If you need to go and check out the Australian or the US market, you're not going to go on a boat. You're going to go on an airplane, because it's the technology that's available at the time. And it's the same thing. If we're going to build a brand new call center, we're probably not going to do it with people. We're probably going to do it through AI agents first, because that technology is now better and cheaper and faster than the alternative. So with all of these things, they're debated narratives. There isn't a yes or a no answer, which that's why it makes it so hard. And that's why people want to talk about it on podcasts, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And that's why it's a human problem as well. It's not just a tech problem, right? It's
Yep.
dealing with us human beings who are sometimes difficult.
Yep.
Speaking of that, what's one of the biggest AI related delusions that business leaders have right now?
So generally people translate their personal lives into their business lives quite a lot. And then we do hear quite a lot of time, the tech's not ready, the tech can't do it. There is very, very few things when it comes to knowledge work that we can't drastically augment or replace with this technology. It comes down to how much budget have you got and how much time do we want to spend on engineering our way through it. Just because it's not been done before doesn't mean it can't be done. And that is the opportunity. And the fallacy, I think, is, I've tried it on ChatGPT and it doesn't work. Okay. Again, you've tried to drive your Ferrari through the field and you've got stuck. That doesn't mean we can't go and build a tractor. And that's not the thing. So that fallacy stonewalls innovation, and your competition won't be thinking that way. They'll be thinking, I'm going to go build a tractor because there's an opportunity to the other side of this thing. And that really is the one piece of advice I would say is there is very, very few things in 2025 that you can't hugely disrupt knowledge work with this tech. That'd be it. The tech can do it, and all of this is a human change and leadership moment.
Yeah. All right. On that change and leadership, if I'm a CEO and I come to you, Dave, I need some advice here about, our AI-driven future. I just want you to summarize it. What's one thing I must stop doing immediately to ensure that future happens? And what's one thing I must start doing immediately to ensure that AI-driven future happens?
I'm just amazed sometimes about how just going back to the strategy table is just not done. And one of the biggest things I try and do personally as a CE is realize that things change, and strategy is a means to an end and a goal. And what's changed in my world that should allow me to re-strategize. And I say this because when we're talking about things that you should stop doing and start doing, is that revisiting those strategies immediately and going, am I using all the capability that exists in the world now to help me execute my strategy? And yes or a no. That starts with facilitation. It starts with good engagement with your executive and realizing that how we've done things in the strategy to execute our goals in the future are likely to change as we're in flight. And if there was a cheaper, faster, higher quality way to execute your goals, is it not irresponsible not to investigate that? And that's what we encourage the conversations to have. It doesn't mean it's going to be the answer. It just means, if there was a way to do your job quicker with greater quality at lower cost, is that not negligence to not investigate that? And it's very difficult to not kind of go, well, actually, yeah, we're going to have to explore that. I generally believe what stalls people wanting to get to that strategy table is that there needs to be then a conversation about what the impact of those decisions are, which tend to be human. And we've been here before with, outsourced contracts. There is a cheaper, more scalable way to do contact centers, for example. We're going to outsource to the Philippines or to India. And a lot of organizations didn't do that because they didn't want to impact their people. And there's quite a lot of micro moments like that where you can see a way and it doesn't happen. Doesn't mean it should happen, because there's an impact on value proposition sometimes. But, it's not like this is a small needle to shift. We're genuinely talking about months of work down to minutes at a higher quality with a price point that's pretty much approaching zero.
Yeah. Well, other than that human element, or maybe that is just still the answer, why do leaders avoid that strategy that you mentioned, that you'd want them to go back to that? Why do they avoid doing that?
I mean, there absolutely will be a return confidence conversation. So what I mean by that is there is dollars that need to be exchanged to execute some of this value. And not many people in many industries have gone down that road of creating these competitive advantages. And the ones that aren't shouting about it. I can tell you that, because they've got the competitive advantage. So what do? Do you sit and wait for someone else to release something that you can go and buy? Or do you go and build it? And then there's a chicken and egg conversation, because you could go and spend a truckload of money only to realize that actually what you've built, there's something built somewhere else that you can use. And, this happened in the early days. The big retail stores built their own e-commerce platforms, and then, like I said before, like Shopify turned around and you can do it for like $2 a month. That doesn't mean the e-com stores got it wrong. It just means they spent a lot of money to get a competitive advantage, and then the world kind of caught up. But they had outsized return because they got market competitive advantage at that point. In smaller markets, that's difficult to kind of figure out, well, what's valuable, what's not. In this part of the world, in Australia, New Zealand, Asia Pacific, specifically that Pacifica region, there's a bit more luxury, because with the greatest respect to our positions in the world, who cares about us? And last time I checked, the US aren't building software for, the indigenous peoples and the New Zealand Maori, and going through a scenario, figuring out how do we build culturally responsible intelligence. They're not thinking that way. So we have our opportunity to build some agency in terms of how we do things here. Our science is different. Our geology is different. Our cultures are different. We've got a bicultural, multicultural nation. So is Australia. So there is opportunity to build some uniqueness with this stuff, which gives some legacy to it. But to answer your question, where's the paralysis kind of coming from? There is an unknown. Like, there is a moment where you do have to step off the cliff a little bit and invest a little bit of money. And that is challenging for some businesses, because they don't know whether they're going to get it back. I totally get it.
Yeah. I guess that's that human uncertainty thing that we mentioned before. That's the outcome's unknown.
But there's a cost of doing nothing. And that cost can be existential, or it could be painful, or it could be just small. Like, you don't know the cost either. As in, so an example would that be, let's say you do nothing and you wait. And then you wait, and then a brand new startup rocks up in the market that can do what you do for 5% of the price. Well, at that point, there's enough commercial leverage for all of your customers to churn, because there's a 95% cost benefit to shift. You can't move quickly enough, and you're out of the game. There is no game. You are literally out of the game. What is really beautiful, though, about what could have gone right in that scenario is that incumbent business has customers, it has capital, it's probably got some cash flow. With a bit of leadership and a bit of investment, it can probably stop that startup from ever happening, because a startup's not going to go into a market where the market leader has already made a first move. So, and what a startup needs is customers. So there is a lot of value in the incumbency if you can start to kind of try and second guess how you could go out of business. And that, again, just goes back to the strategy table.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Dave, look, as we start to wrap up, we're almost out of time. What we like to do is to get to know the person behind the screen in a little bit of a deeper way, and we call it the rapid round. I'm going to fire 10 quick questions at you, and I'd love you to respond just in a couple of words for each of them. So are you ready to go?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Dave, what was your first job?
Garage cleaner.
What's your coffee order?
Flat white double shot.
Okay. Are you an Android guy or an iPhone guy?
iPhone guy.
Mm-hmm. Office or work from home?
Both. Office. If you're going to push me, office.
All right. Early riser or night owl?
No, early riser. Yeah, 5 a.m. crew.
Mm-hmm. One piece of tech you couldn't live without?
AirPods.
Your current go-to productivity hack?
It's a boring one. Just AI note taking has just been a game changer for me. I'm dyslexic as hell and short-term memory, so it's my number one go-to, regardless of how simple it is.
Mm-hmm. Best investment you've ever made, money or time?
I'm a shareholder in Nvidia, and I'm going to hold them for as long as I can.
Okay. Yep. Business book or podcast you'd recommend to everyone?
Atomic Habits, really good one. And there's another one that trumps that one. Gino Wickman's Traction. It's a structural management book, really good.
All right. And last but not least, if you weren't doing what you do now, what career would you choose?
Firefighter.
That's an interesting one. We haven't had that one before. Fantastic. All righty.
I'm actually a volunteer firefighter already. So if I wasn't volunteering, I'd be doing it full time. Great.
Yeah. All righty. Just to finish up, the name of the show is The Business Game. So if business truly is a game, what's your definition of winning?
Create more value than you can charge for it. I think that's kind of the way I see it. I mean, isn't that the formula for business? Create value and then charge appropriately. If that formula exists, then you have some sustainability in your business, and that is winning for me.
Yeah, fantastic. Dave, thanks very much for sharing your wisdom and your time today. Tell us, where can people find more about you and learn more about SupaHuman?
Good question. For SupaHuman, just hit superhuman.com. Everything you need to know is on there. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, Dave Howden. You'll find me on there. But yeah, all good social media platforms. Subscribe, like, whatever you need to do to connect. I'll be there for you.
Fantastic, Dave. Thanks again very much. Right. It's been an honour to have you here. All right, that's a wrap for today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us bring you great new episodes of The Business Game every week.
For more insights, strategies, and real stories to help move the needle in your business, we'll meet you back here next time.
Thanks for tuning in to The Business Game.
If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe on YouTube and follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay connected.
A big thank you to our major sponsor, TraffTrack, for powering today's episode.
And join us again on the next episode of The Business Game, a podcast that moves the needle.